Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're listening to the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any selection using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Findings generalization in discourse analysis. Findings generalization in discourse analysis refers to the challenge and potential of applying insights gained from specific discursive contexts to broader social, cultural, or linguistic phenomena. Unlike many quantitative studies, where findings are often generalized across populations based on statistical sampling, discourse analysis is inherently context-sensitive. It focuses on the particularities of language use in specific social settings. Consequently, the question of how, and whether, findings can be generalized is complex and depends largely on the research aims, theoretical framework, and methodological choices. Generalization in discourse analysis does not necessarily imply applying findings to large populations but rather understanding how the patterns identified in one context might relate to broader discourses, ideologies, or social structures. Discourse analysts often seek to develop theoretical generalizations or contextual insights that link specific findings to wider societal patterns, rather than making claims about statistical representativeness. The nature of generalization in discourse analysis. In discourse analysis, generalization is more often about theoretical and conceptual insights than about statistical inference. This means that researchers aim to uncover patterns, discursive strategies, or linguistic structures that reflect broader social processes, even if these findings are rooted in a particular context. Context dependence of findings. One of the key features of discourse analysis is its contextual nature. The meaning of language use depends heavily on the social, cultural, and political context in which it occurs. As a result, findings from discourse analysis are deeply tied to the specific context being studied, and the idea of generalizing these findings in the traditional sense is less straightforward. Example: a study of political discourse in a particular election might reveal that metaphors of war and battle are commonly used to frame political competition. While this finding is specific to that election's discourse, it may point to broader patterns in how political competition is framed in Western democratic contexts. Theoretical generalization. Theoretical generalization in discourse analysis involves using findings from a particular study to contribute to broader theoretical understandings of language, power, identity, or ideology. The goal is not to apply the findings universally but to show how specific discursive practices align with larger theoretical frameworks. Example: a study of gendered language in corporate boardrooms may reveal how women leaders use discursive strategies to navigate masculine norms of leadership. While the findings may be specific to a particular organization, they can contribute to broader theories of gender and power in institutional discourse. Transferability. Rather than seeking statistical generalization, discourse analysts often aim for transferability, where the insights gained from one context can be applied to another similar context. Transferability depends on the degree to which the contextual features of one study resemble those of another, allowing researchers to draw parallels between different discursive practices. Example: a discourse analysis of media coverage of immigration in one country may offer insights into how immigration is framed in another country, provided that the political and cultural contexts are sufficiently similar. Approaches to generalization in discourse analysis. Discourse analysts use various strategies to enhance the transferability or theoretical reach of their findings, enabling their work to contribute to broader discourses or to provide insights applicable across contexts. Point 1. Thick description. Thick description is a method used to provide detailed, context-rich accounts of the discourse being studied. By offering an in-depth analysis of the social, historical, and cultural contexts in which the discourse occurs, thick description allows readers to understand the particularities of the case while also drawing connections to broader social phenomena. Example: in a study of classroom interactions, a discourse analyst might provide detailed accounts of the social dynamics, educational norms, and power relations within the classroom, allowing readers to apply these insights to other educational settings with similar dynamics. Point 2. Case studies and exemplars. Discourse analysis often involves case studies, which focus on specific examples of discourse in action. While these cases are context-bound, they are often selected for their representativeness or because they illustrate key features of broader discursive phenomena. Findings from case studies can serve as exemplars that highlight broader patterns in discourse. Example: a case study of a public relations crisis might reveal discursive strategies used to manage corporate reputation. While specific to that crisis, these strategies could inform broader theories of corporate communication and reputation management across industries. Point 3. Triangulation. Triangulation refers to the use of multiple data sources, methods, or theoretical perspectives to strengthen the validity and generalizability of findings. By examining discourse from different angles, researchers can identify patterns that are consistent across various contexts, making the findings more robust and transferable. Example: a researcher analyzing discourse on climate change might triangulate by examining media coverage, political speeches, and social media discussions. If similar discursive strategies, e.g., using urgency or skepticism, are found across these different sources, the findings may be considered more broadly applicable. Point 4. Cross-contextual comparison. Cross-contextual comparison involves comparing discursive practices across different settings or time periods to identify patterns that transcend specific contexts. This approach can reveal how similar themes or strategies are used in varying contexts, contributing to a broader understanding of discourse. Example: a comparison of environmental discourse in the 1990s and 2020s might reveal shifts in how climate change is framed, from future threat to current crisis. While specific to these two time periods, such findings can offer insights into how environmental discourse evolves over time and across different political contexts. Limits of generalization in discourse analysis. While discourse analysis can provide valuable insights into language use and its social implications, there are inherent limitations to generalizing these findings, largely due to the contextual and interpretive nature of the method. Point 1. Context specificity of discourse. Discourse is highly context-specific, meaning that the language used in one setting may not carry the same meaning in another. This makes it difficult to generalize findings in the same way that quantitative studies might generalize from a sample to a population. Example: a study of political discourse in a European country may not be directly applicable to discourse in the United States, as the cultural, historical, and political contexts differ significantly, influencing the meaning and function of the language. Point 2. Subjectivity and interpretation. Discourse analysis is interpretive, and different researchers may come to different conclusions based on the same data. This subjectivity can limit the generalizability of findings, as what holds true in one interpretation may not necessarily apply in another. Example: one researcher might interpret a politician's use of metaphor as a deliberate strategy to evoke patriotism, while another might see it as a routine aspect of political rhetoric. Both interpretations could be valid, but the subjective nature of discourse analysis complicates generalization. Point 3. Limited sample sizes. Discourse analysis often involves small, qualitative samples, such as a set of interviews, speeches, or media articles. These samples provide rich data for in-depth analysis but may not represent broader discursive trends across larger populations. Example: a discourse analysis of a single debate on immigration may offer insights into the framing of immigration in that debate but might not capture the full range of perspectives or discursive strategies used in broader public discourse on the topic. Strategies for enhancing generalization in discourse analysis. Although generalization is challenging in discourse analysis, researchers can use several strategies to enhance the credibility and applicability of their findings across different contexts. Point 1. Reflexivity and transparency. By being reflexive and transparent about their research process, discourse analysts can strengthen the reliability of their findings. Researchers should clearly explain how they arrived at their interpretations and how the context influenced the discourse. This allows others to assess the transferability of the findings to different settings. Example: a researcher analyzing workplace communication might include a detailed explanation of the organizational culture, power dynamics, and specific discursive practices of that workplace, allowing readers to consider how these factors might apply to similar organizations. Point 2. Developing mid-range theories. Instead of aiming for broad, universal generalizations, discourse analysts can focus on developing mid-range theories that apply to specific social phenomena or discursive contexts. These theories offer insights that can be applied to similar situations without making overly broad claims. Example: a study of how social movements use social media to frame their messages might lead to a mid-range theory about digital activism. While not universally applicable to all activism, this theory could help explain discursive strategies in other social movements with similar goals and communication platforms. Point 3. Using larger corpora. One way to enhance generalizability is to work with larger corpora of data, such as extensive collections of media articles, social media posts, or political speeches. While discourse analysis remains primarily qualitative, larger datasets can reveal broader trends in language use that are more likely to be transferable across contexts. Example: a researcher analyzing climate change discourse might use a corpus of thousands of news articles from different countries and time periods. By identifying common themes or discursive strategies across this large dataset, the researcher can make more confident claims about the general patterns of climate change discourse. Examples of generalization in discourse analysis. Example 1. Media discourse on immigration. A discourse analysis of immigration coverage in U.S. media might reveal that immigrants are frequently framed as economic threats or security risks. While these findings are specific to the U.S. context, they may contribute to a broader understanding of how immigration is framed in Western media. A similar study in European or Australian media could draw on these findings, making connections between national discourses and global migration narratives. Example 2. Gender discourse in educational settings. A study of how gender is constructed in classroom interactions might focus on a specific school or even a single classroom. However, the findings could contribute to larger discussions about gender and education by offering insights into how teachers and students negotiate gender roles through discourse. These findings might be transferable to other educational contexts with similar gender dynamics. Example 3. Political discourse on national identity. An analysis of national identity in political speeches during a specific election campaign might show how certain symbols, such as the flag or references to historical figures, are used to construct a unified national identity. While these findings are tied to the particular election, they could inform broader theories of nationalism and identity construction in political discourse across different countries and time periods. Conclusion: generalization in discourse analysis presents unique challenges due to the context-dependent and interpretive nature of the method. However, by focusing on theoretical generalization, transferability, and mid-range theories, discourse analysts can contribute valuable insights that extend beyond the specific contexts they study. By using strategies like thick description, case studies, and triangulation, researchers can enhance the applicability of their findings to broader social, cultural, or political phenomena. While statistical generalization may not be the goal, discourse analysis provides rich, nuanced understandings of how language functions in society, offering valuable contributions to larger theoretical debates and helping to illuminate broader discursive patterns. Frequently asked questions. What does findings generalization mean in discourse analysis? Findings generalization in discourse analysis refers to the challenge and potential of applying insights gained from specific discursive contexts to broader social, cultural, or linguistic phenomena. Unlike quantitative studies that often generalize findings across populations based on statistical sampling, discourse analysis focuses on context-sensitive language use, emphasizing theoretical and contextual insights rather than statistical representativeness. Why is generalization challenging in discourse analysis? Generalization is challenging in discourse analysis because it is inherently context-sensitive. The meaning of language depends on the specific social, cultural, and political context. Discourse analysis often involves small, qualitative samples, making it difficult to generalize findings in the traditional sense of applying them universally. How does theoretical generalization differ from statistical generalization in discourse analysis? Theoretical generalization in discourse analysis involves using findings from a particular study to contribute to broader theoretical understandings of language, power, identity, or ideology. Unlike statistical generalization, which seeks to apply findings to a larger population, theoretical generalization aims to show how specific discursive practices align with larger theoretical frameworks. What is transferability in discourse analysis? Transferability refers to the ability to apply insights gained from one context to another similar context. In discourse analysis, researchers aim for transferability by providing detailed accounts of the context in which the discourse occurs, allowing others to draw parallels between different discursive practices and apply the findings to similar settings. What strategies can enhance generalization in discourse analysis? Several strategies can enhance generalization in discourse analysis. Thick description, providing detailed, context-rich accounts of the discourse to allow readers to draw connections to broader social phenomena. Case studies and exemplars, using specific examples of discourse to highlight key features that may represent broader patterns. Triangulation, using multiple data sources, methods, or perspectives to identify consistent patterns across contexts. Cross-contextual comparison, comparing discursive practices across different settings or time periods to identify patterns that transcend specific contexts. Can discourse analysis contribute to larger theoretical discussions? Yes, discourse analysis can contribute to larger theoretical discussions by developing theoretical generalizations that link specific findings to broader theories of language, power, identity, or ideology. For example, a study on gendered language in corporate boardrooms can inform broader theories about gender and power in institutional discourse. How does context specificity limit generalization in discourse analysis? Context specificity limits generalization because the meaning and function of language depend on the particular social, cultural, and political context. For instance, political discourse in one country may not be directly applicable to another due to differing historical and cultural influences that shape how language is used and understood. How can reflexivity and transparency help in generalizing findings in discourse analysis? Reflexivity and transparency involve researchers being explicit about their research process, context, and interpretations. By clearly explaining how they arrived at their findings and how context influenced the discourse, researchers allow others to assess the applicability of their findings to different settings, thereby enhancing the potential for transferability. What is the role of triangulation in enhancing generalization? Triangulation involves using multiple data sources, methods, or theoretical perspectives to strengthen the validity of findings. By examining discourse from various angles, researchers can identify patterns that are consistent across different contexts, enhancing the robustness and potential transferability of their findings. How can discourse analysts use larger corpora to enhance generalization? By working with larger corpora, such as extensive collections of media articles or political speeches, discourse analysts can identify broader trends in language use. Analyzing larger datasets allows researchers to make more confident claims about patterns in discourse, potentially leading to more transferable findings across different contexts. Can case studies in discourse analysis be generalized? Case studies in discourse analysis can serve as exemplars that highlight broader discursive patterns. While they are context-bound, case studies are often selected for their representativeness or ability to illustrate key features of broader phenomena. Therefore, they can provide insights into similar discursive practices in other settings. What is the difference between thick description and thin description in discourse analysis? Thick description involves providing detailed, context-rich accounts of discourse, including social, cultural, and historical contexts, allowing readers to understand the particularities and draw broader connections. Thin description focuses on surface-level details without delving into the deeper meanings and context. Thick description is preferred in discourse analysis to provide depth and facilitate transferability.